Thanks. I'm jealous of Matt's hair. So many lovely locks. Good morning. My question is, what if we change the stories we tell ourselves? And I do have a very interesting perspective because I'm a magician and I do tell stories. One of my favorite quotes is from Joseph Campbell. And he says, mythology is more important and true than history because history is just journalism and we know how accurate that is. Kind of an interesting statement, but our stories are really big, they're really deep, and they affect all of us. And the story that I'm going to talk to you guys today about, I played around with a lot of different ways to present this, and I thought giving you a personal example because this question, I'm not here just to ask this question, I'm here because of this question. About 20 years ago, I had to answer the question, and not only did my story change, but my life changed. To give you a little bit of context of what was going on back then, I had just dropped out of university to pursue a career in professional sports. And I had a really bad leg injury. I tore up tendons in my leg. It was pretty much career ending. And that threw me into a really severe depression. I moved back in with my parents. I was basically like a hermit back in this little tiny room, and I would only come out to eat and use the restroom. That was it. And I did all of those things around when my parents were sleeping or when they were gone because I didn't want them to see me. I was just kind of ashamed of myself. And I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with depression, but imagine a belligerent person who's very angry with you, follows you around constantly, telling you the most horrible things, like you're worthless and you're never going to accomplish anything in your life and no one is ever going to love you. No one would ever want to be loved by you. It's horrific, and it colors everything in your life. I had planned to kill myself. I had planned to commit suicide, and I'll never forget that morning. I woke up really early. And I had literally just had enough of these voices going on. And I buckled together out of these old bells this makeshift noose. I knew the tree that was in my parents' backyard, and I knew the branch that I was going to use. And I sat down on the ground next to my bed, and I had written this letter basically telling my parents, all the horrible things. I just put them into words. And it was the first time in 3 months that I actually made the bed, folded the letter up really neat and placed on the bed exactly, and I'll never forget. I remember thinking this is exactly like one of those after-school television specials preventing suicides. It was exactly, this note was perfect on the bed. I don't know what possessed me to do that, but I did. I sat down and I started thinking about just finally, when I was able to do this, how the pain was really going to go away. And that was the only thing that I could focus on. I don't remember how much time passed, but I remember hearing my parents wake up and get ready, and my dad opened the door to their room. And the next thing I knew, there was a book sliding underneath of the door with a note on the top of it. And I went over and I picked it up, and on the note it said, "I love you. You might want to read this. It might help." And I took the note off, and it was this little tiny thin book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it, but it's a book about love, forgiveness, acceptance, and realizing unlimited potential. The book didn't save my life. My dad's letter, that little, simple, handwritten letter, is what shifted me. And the moment I read that, I realized that the story that I'm telling myself could not possibly be true because, and I know my parents had told me that they loved me before and other people had told me that they loved me, but for whatever reason, I just wasn't hearing any of that. And that morning it shifted, and I thought, if he's going to take the time to do this and reach out and say something, then that has to be true, and what I'm telling myself, my story, isn't true. I started replacing a lot of those negative stories and those negative thought processes, not looking at failure, looking at it like learning exercises, realizing that I could love myself and that human beings, as unique as we are, can never be worthless. We have infinite value. And that moment is really what shifted my life to go on to be a magician. In the 20 years that have passed, my life, it's had ups and downs, but it's been absolutely amazing. I started out training exotic animals, working in educational programs with zoos. I then moved on to become a professional magician and travel around the world. And one time on international television in front of millions of people, as a group of friends and I, we stopped time in a country. I've worked with scientists developing wide bandgap solar cells. I've started companies, been an entrepreneur. Recently, with my business partner, I started a creative consulting group, and what we do is help people tell their stories in more effective ways so they can reach people and help them. So my question, what if we change the stories we tell ourselves, is it's a big question, because it's not only just the individual. These stories that we tell can shape our communities, they can shape our schools, our educational systems, they can shape our nations, and they can shape us as a species together. So what story are you telling yourself today that's boxing you in, that's keeping you inside of a little box, that's not allowing you to see your own potential? Maybe you've never had that. Maybe you've been just an overachiever your entire life. But if there is, know that it's just a story and that you can change it. And when you change that, everything in the world changes. Thank you guys so much for coming out today. I really appreciate it. Thanks.